this one small question that by legalizing or by even regulating, you wouldn't say that this has not yet become a $1 million industry, but it might.
Yeah.
But then if it might, there would still be some, power or someone misusing that power either.
Yeah.
So how
Is
can you
it is
create
it
a balance?
easier? Is it easier to actually catch a person in a completely legal industry, or is it easier to catch a lot of people in a completely illegal industry?
Interesting.
If
Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing good. Hi, Preet. Hi, Mohit. Welcome, Hiranmay. Hi, Samay. So, today's topic is sex trafficking and prostitution and the sociological aspects revolving around this topic. We have Preet to address on this issue. Another thing is, Preet is a law student. Yay! So, well, Preet, please
oh
introduce the
my
topic
God.
and yourself.
Okay, so hi, I'm Preet, and I'm a law student again, if you didn't know. But yeah, so basically talking about sex trafficking, like limiting the trafficking aspect to prostitution and sex workers is a very how would I say, a limited topic. But when we progress and when we approach the topic of prostitution, it has a wide range which would challenge the society ethically as well as in moral terms. So it's very like, it's very necessary for us to look at the initialization of sex trafficking and prostitution. Basically, it's like it's considered to be the oldest profession, right? So, and not addressing it would be actually like not addressing the topic properly, right? It's like it started through religious prostitution, basically like the concept of devdasis, where people actually um, gave their daughters to temples for where later they were mishandled by the priest, and like that's how the concept of basically prostitution and it all started. But legally it wasn't recognized by the society until the Britishers came in, and the laws uh, they became more strict because of the health aspect of prostitution and not because of how immoral it was initially, because it was basically how the soldiers were harmed, but how the Britishers were harmed during that time of prostitution, like because they used to engage in they used to engage in prostitution. They were too far away, and they and the Britishers made laws for it. Now, like coming down to the recent state of prostitution, we have a very blind-sided or a narrow-minded approach towards it. Like socially, we condemn it. Like we say prostitution is illegal in our country. It's not. It's a misconception. Its manifestations, its 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 aspects are illegal in our country, not the act itself. Because when you consider criminal law or criminalizing an act, it needs to be harmful towards a community. But when we consider the act of sexual gratification, it's not it's not harmful. You cannot call it harmful towards a society, though morally it might not be accepted and socially it's condemned upon. It's not, it's legally not harming anyone. So, and yeah, our country as well, like there are four categories when you can where you can classify a country's approach towards prostitution, right? One is total prohibition, where you like prohibit each and every act and the people in it. Second is regulation, where the government is involved and where the sex workers are actually given recognition as human beings and they have their own rights, and like their health is kept in check, and their rights are kept in check, or they can actually go forward and seek um, justice if anything happens to them, right? Which is currently not the case in our society right now, because of the because obviously of the social aspects, not legal aspects. Because legally you can go ahead and seek reinforcement of your fundamental rights, and even in the cases of the Immoral Trafficking Act, you can actually go ahead and seek rights, seek your fundamental rights. Then again, but we perform a repressive measure against prostitution, which is basically we have criminalized the acts that revolve around prostitution, which is basically trafficking. We have criminalized pimping. We have criminalized owning a brothel, right? Which which basically is calling it a necessary evil. We do recognize people do engage in extramarital affairs, or like go to brothels or seek sexual gratification, which is not necessarily to the person they are married to. Okay, so, and even there have been certain sightings of um, where brothel workers or sex workers has said that 80% of the people they engage with are married and 20% are unmarried, which is basically we have to recognize that people who engage in the act of prostitution, or who are even the consumers of it, are do engage in these activities actively. We cannot deny it's blatant कि होता ही नहीं है भाई, कि ये होना ही नहीं चाहिए, right? So coming down to how do you consider we can control this, or how do you think like what should our outlook on prostitution be? Because we mostly consider, okay, this is a very it is considered to be a taboo in our country. If somebody says I engage in prostitution, would you rather associate yourself with that person, or would you like step back a bit and completely judge that person? You would, right? So it's like it's not just the legal aspect of prostitution over here, it's the society at large, how we consider prostitutes, right? Because that plays a very important role when it comes to uh, sex workers seeking justice, or even for sex workers to have their own rights. It's like we have a concept called white slavery, where the people who engage white slavery is basically where slaves act as free agents, right? So when a person is subjected to prostitution, have you seen the outlook of people who engage in prostitution? They are very weirdly independent and weirdly aggressive, because they act as free agents and they consider them uh, sort of independent in a way in which society doesn't understand them, and neither does the society accept them, right? We also need to recognize that when it comes to laws, we need to be very inclusive. We can't exclude people. We need to recognize that such an evil exists, right? When we legalize, okay, I am very pro towards legalization of prostitution in our country, because though there is a social argument that's presented that more women would more morally loose women would engage into prostitution, and it would be a huge industry, and it's like if a person does seek sexual gratification and would like to be compensated for it, or like would like to go for it, I would not consider it as a bad thing. Are you getting my point? Like, we need to change our ideation towards how prostitution works to reduce the hmm, to the more this would actually help in reducing the more morally cruel aspect of it, which is trafficking. Are you getting my point? Actually abducting children, actually abducting women and forcing them into something, right? People are, when we accept something, people more become more open towards it, right? It's a neurological aspect as well, right? The psychology of people, it changes. If people are more accepting towards an idea, they would engage in it by themselves, and it would be and the burden won't fall on a community that is not necessary, that does not want to engage in it. And there are and then the buyer pimp relationship can be destroyed. Are you getting my point? If there Okay, so even the prostitution industry, it functions with like the basic uh invisible hands of economics, like basically buy and supply, like the consumers and the suppliers, right? So, and there is a middleman, which actually pimps, who engage in sex trafficking, and they buy and they abduct, they coerce, um, they actually seduce people into getting into or force them into this act, right? So, if we establish if we legally recognize this and not be blindsided or narrow minded towards it, we can actually achieve a more peaceful scenario by destroying the root cause of the violent aspect of prostitution, that is sex trafficking.